Welcome to the hearing officer meeting for September 19th, 2017. Today's meeting is called to order. Good afternoon. My name is David Williams and I'm the City of Tempe's hearing officer. The City of Tempe hearing officer is authorized by Arizona revised statutes and the City of Tempe Zoning and Development Code and has the duty to carry out the provisions and intent of the City of Tempe General Plan and Zoning and Development Code, and is granted the authority to conduct public hearings to review and either approve, continue, deny, or approve with conditions several types of cases, including use permits, variances, and property abatements. On today's agenda, we have three types of items that we'll be hearing, including approval of one set of meeting minutes, one abatement case, and one use permit request. As the hearing officer, I have reviewed carefully the City of Tempe Community Development Department report on each of the items that are being considered on today's agenda, and I use the information in that report during the deliberations. Additionally, I have driven by each of the properties that are on the agenda today so that I can have understanding of the as-built conditions, the neighborhood, and the actual condition on the property on the agenda. If you are an applicant or interested citizen, when your request is called or when you wish to address the hearing officer, please step up to the microphone and state your name and city of residence. If you are somebody other than an applicant today and you wish to speak to the hearing officer, that is great about a case that's on the agenda, but please complete a white speaker card, which are located both in the back of the room and they're also up front next to the podium, and hand those to staff if you would when you approach the podium to speak today. Each citizen is given about 3 minutes to speak. Any person who might be aggrieved by a decision of the hearing officer today may file an appeal of that decision, and it must be done within 14 calendar days. And so the deadline to appeal any decisions made today would be 3 p.m., October 3rd, 2017. Again, that appeal date is 3 p.m., October 3rd, 2017. Appeals of decisions of the hearing officer are either heard by the Board of Adjustment or the Development Review Commission, whichever body is appropriate to that type of case that's being appealed. In the case of a property abatement, if the property owner fails to file an appeal or fails to bring the property into compliance prior to this date, the code violations addressed at this public hearing will be abated by the City of Tempe. A couple introductions before we get started. Over to my right is Steve Abrahamson, Principal Planner, Diane McGuire, Administrative Assistant, and Lee Jimenez, Senior Planner. Okay, let's get started on today's agenda. The first thing we'll hear is agenda item number 1. That is consideration of our meeting minutes from 2 weeks ago for September 5th. I did review those minutes and I do approve them as presented in the packet today. Let's go on to agenda item number 2 on today's agenda. This is a request for approval to abate public nuisance items at the Gay property. This is case CE 170321. The property is located at 625 West 3rd Street, and the applicant is the City of Tempe. Mr. Lara Reyes. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Andres Lara Reyes. I'm with the City of Tempe Code Compliance Division. I'm here to request an abatement of the property at 625 West 3rd Street, in Tempe 5281, and that's the abatement to include removal of all trash, litter, debris, discarded appliances, metals, tubing, fence bars, wood, and all this is located in the backyard. This violation has been open since January of this year. The owner was issued several notices and also was issued a citation and was found responsible with the City of Tempe court system. I'm here to request approval. As of this morning, the property remains in violation for most of the litter and debris in the backyard.
Okay, so been going on since January, and it did go through the violation process.
January 13, 2017.
Okay.
Yes.
I noticed you said there was minimal response. So have you met with the property owners? Did they?
Yes, I spoke to him at the property several times. I also spoke to him outside the court. when he was found responsible, I stated to him that, we must clean up the property and bring it into compliance.
When was the court date
It was
approximately?
about 2 months ago.
In August, or?
Yes, July, August, somewhere around there, yes.
Okay. And any more activity this last few days in terms of response or
In terms of
communication?
response, no, I haven't spoke
Okay.
to him since that citation hearing. But as of this morning, just minimum improvements have been made, so,
Okay. And you're requesting a 180-day continuous? Okay.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Larez.
Thank you.
I may call you back for questions. Is the property owner here or anybody here to represent this case? Please come on up.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is William Gay, and I live at 625 West 3rd Street, Tempe. I'm a Tempe native, actually born here.
Yay.
I'm not very good at this. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, so.
That's all right. You're doing
bear with
fine.
me. Mr., I don't know if you have this same sheet that I was sent.
I do.
Some of the items you just covered with him, I had questions about. For instance, he's suggesting that I haven't responded to this. Well, I have been in contact with him. We went to court. I had several times I've talked to him. And I've actually invited him into the backyard so maybe he could tell me what I can keep and what I can't keep, because that's a real gray area. And as of this date, I don't know what I'm allowed to keep in my own backyard.
Okay. And for example, you can have 2 vehicles, I believe you're allowed to have. You have
Well,
more than that.
I spent all morning on the computer reading
Did you?
some code compliances. And so I'm even more confused now.
Okay.
But
Do you have a plan to clean some of the property up, to remove the
I
materials?
have been working on it. Apparently not fast enough for the city, but that's my main reason for being here is I would like to have some more time, because there's no way I can afford this price of this abatement. I have limited income, and the civil sanction that they gave me, I had to do community service for.
Right, I understand. And we've been in communication, I guess the city has, not myself, but with you since early this year.
Yes.
And I'm concerned that in those past 9 months, there hasn't been any action to get anything cleaned up. I understand you don't quite know what's permitted and not, but you understand most of the material has got to go.
I have hauled probably 20 loads out of there already. Half of them to the dump and half of them to the scrapyard.
Great.
I supplement my income with recycling, and 2.5 years ago, the bottom fell out of the recycling market.
Yeah.
And so I started stockpiling, and that's the reason that there was
I noticed
much
in the
overrun.
photos. Right.
The house I live in is very small. I have some things that should be inside, stored outside. I eventually would like to build a garage in the back. And some of the things that are on the property are building materials that I've collected to do just that. I want to build a 4-car garage off the back of the property.
And there are some materials that you can keep. Some of those can remain. They're building materials. Most of them, though, not. I know that staff will work with you to help you understand what's allowed and not. My couple concerns I have. One is it's not just the city that's pursuing you to clean up the property. There's also neighboring property owners who are not happy with the condition, and it detracts from that street. It's a pretty nice street you live on, a nice neighborhood.
Right.
And that condition now it's in the front yard too is really a concern for more than just the city.
If you drove past in the last couple of weeks, actually for the last couple of months, my front yard has been kind of a wreck because I have brought stuff out of the backyard into the front yard to be able to access the things in the backyard. Normally, it's not like that.
I understand.
Normally, my front yard is pretty pristine. And what's in my backyard has always been, to my knowledge, you can have pretty much what you want in your own backyard, as long as it's not offensive to somebody. But there are only 2 people that have visual to my backyard, and they're the apartments straight behind the alley. The neighbors on both sides of me have no problem with my yard. I've talked to them in depth about it. And I don't know who's complaining. I mean, I wanted to cover a couple of other things that Mr. Lauderez wrote up. There's some very strong language used in part of this, and it's concerning one particular word, recidivism, which means habitual backsliding into former criminal activities. That, to me, is very strong language and is almost basis for a slander case. It's very, very strong language. It's very upsetting that he would put something like that in there. And if it is a criminal activity, then I have a right to know my accuser. I have asked him who's been complaining, and I don't get any response for that. I've invited him into the backyard so he could maybe show me what I could keep and what I can't. And
That term gets used by the abatement group to mean more or less a repeat situation where violations are reoccurring or repeating, and that's the kind of the context of the use of that word. And I certainly can appreciate your concern about it. But now we're at a point where there's been a violation entered or issued, court date, and the property owner found guilty of the violation. So, you know, that your day in court came and went. I don't know how that went for you that day, but I know you were found guilty of that. So that is a violation of city code. So the accuser is really the city in this regard, with that's quoting the sections of the code that the property violates. And then just to comment too about who views into the property, and that is significant, who can see it and who not, but the actual code that doesn't allow us to store materials has larger safety concerns when it comes to public safety, potential for fire, infestation, rodents and things that can go, and we have a property has a lot of materials stored on it. That's why we try to store things like that in industrial and non-residential areas because of those types of hazards. Is there anything else you wanted to ask today?
I would like to have a little more time and try and take care of the problem myself, because, like I said, there's no way I can afford that, particularly because of the litigation I've been through concerning the property. My ex-wife filed for bankruptcy and locked up the property because her name is still on the title. It cost me $7,500. And so, I mean, I know it's not your problem, but it certainly is mine with the financial situation. And thank you for your time, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate you taking the time to come talk to me. Anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak on this case? You're welcome to do so.
My name's Mike Myers.
Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, sir. This is going to be very brief. I'm Kenny's neighbor to the west, and I've worked with him, knowing him for quite a while. He's a trustworthy individual, maybe a little eccentric, And, you know, I like him as a guy. I work with him and I trust him, and I hope that you give him leniency.
Thank you. You live on Third Street?
Yes, sir. I'm right to the west of him, 633 and 629.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming today. Will you turn in your card for us, too? Thanks. And thanks for filling that out also. Anyone else want to speak today on agenda item number 2, public nuisance items at 625 West 3rd? I'm not seeing anybody else wishing to speak. I appreciate that you both came today and took the time to be here and speak with me. I did inspect the property, as mentioned earlier, today and looked at the condition. I have to agree that it's a concern for the items we discussed when you were at the podium. In terms of more time, there's about 2 weeks of time you got to get busy and get the property cleaned up. And beyond that, I don't think it's reasonable to ask the other neighbors and the city to wait much longer. So that date is, I mentioned it early, October 3rd, to get the property cleaned up. So the request to approval to abate public nuisance items at 625 West 3rd Street is approved as an open 180-day abatement. And thank you again for taking your time to be here, and thank you, city staff as well. Our next item on today's agenda is agenda item number 3. It is a request to approve a use permit to allow a second-story addition for the, I hope I say this right, the Weiss residence. It's case PL 170270, located at 1603 East Hudson Drive. The applicant's Dave Mazza and Mr. Jimenez. You have a report?
Good evening, Hearing Officer Williams. My name is Lee Jimenez. I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department in the Planning Division. The Weiss residence is located on Lot 41 on the Hudson Manor 1 lots 11 through 2 subdivision, which is situated on the southeast corner of East Hudson Drive and South Elm Street within the R16 Single Family Residential District. The applicant, Dave Mazza, is requesting a use permit to allow a single-story, single-family residence to add a second-story addition. The second-floor addition will add approximately 1,169 square feet of livable space. The scope of work complies with all the development standards required in the R16 single-family residential district. As a historical note, the hearing officer approved the use permit to allow a second-story addition back in February 17th of 2009. However, the entitlement expired a year later. This proposal is very similar to what was previously approved. To date, staff has received 9 emails, 2 letters, 1 phone call, and 8 petition signatures in support of the request. No opposition has been received by staff. As indicated in the staff report, based on the information provided by the applicant, the public input received, staff supports this request and believes that the application meets all the approval criteria for this use permit request. And I'll be available to answer any questions should you have any.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jimenez. I do remember this case, especially when I was sitting outside the property today for a while. I'm looking at the plans. As I read it too, the second story addition is more or less the whole footprint of the house, essentially. As you read it, is that correct? I didn't see well, I guess there was a square foot on the plans. I can ask the architect of the addition. Other than that, I've noticed that we discussed some trees that are close to the house last time, and we can discuss that with the applicant as well. Thank you, Mr. Jimenez.
Welcome.
Is the applicant here today?
Yes.
Come on down. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Ms. Williams. I'm Dave Mazza with Ray Metal Tempe. I'm a resident of Tempe.
Thank you for being here.
You bet.
Any information you'd like to present, please do, or any questions you have?
Really
We're all yours.
nothing to add to the package from, I thought you were the previous hearing officer on there.
Yeah.
The one improvement in the reset was actually the building is of smaller scale, and that second story is now actually the center core of the building underneath to basically mimic a 1.5-story type structure.
Okay. So that's why the roof lines extend all the
Yeah,
way.
we actually, it's a little bit lower and much less in scale.
Okay. Good job on communicating with the neighborhood. I compliment you.
That is the Weese's, very well liked in the neighborhood, having lived in there for many, many years.
Amazing letters, so well done. Are the applicants the occupants of the house?
Yes,
Okay.
the home is unoccupied right now, preparing for construction.
Okay, great. There's 4 large mature trees real
Yes.
close to the house. What's the plan for those, and can those be somewhat preserved? Maybe
Yes.
have to be trimmed, I don't know.
The intention is on the 2 cedars out front,
Yeah,
there's a little bit of pruning we need on the back side and to bring the front porch forward for that large front porch element, but it is sized and scaled to not touch the trees. A little bit of pruning on them. And then the large pecan will be pruned probably the most, just again for building structure to come out and buy it. But everything is expected to not have any issues.
okay. So the ones particularly in the front gives a nice symmetry.
Yes.
You see those staying there with minimal. All
Yeah,
right,
that was a point made by the owners when we first came into the project, and it was just always been and assumed that they stay. And it's also how I find the house when I'm driving around the 2 tall trees.
exactly. That's all the questions I have, unless you have any. There are a couple conditions of approval. Any concerns or questions about those?
No, we've read through things, and Lee's been easy to work with, and don't expect any issues. If you have questions for us, by all means, ask us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I've got, and thanks for being here.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your patience.
You bet.
Okay, we're on agenda item 3. This is a use permit request. Does anyone else in the audience want to speak on this case? Not seeing anyone else. Per City of Tempe Development Code, there's a few criteria that need to be satisfied for a use permit, so I want to review those for the record. I do agree with staff's recommendation for approval, and I'm going to approve this request for use permit as applied for, and finding that regarding the criteria in the code, any significant increase in traffic or pedestrian traffic, there's no expectation that this addition will have any negative traffic effect, either pedestrian or vehicular. It's a single-family residence. Nuisance arising from odor, dust, gas, vibration, other than construction period, there won't be any additional noise arising from this addition that I can determine as hearing officer. Contributing to the deterioration of the neighborhood, which conflicts with our adopted plans in the City of Tempe. What I see this as a positive, an investment in the neighborhood and the community, and this is quite the opposite of deterioration, and I support this investment very much. Number 4, compatibility with existing surrounding structures and uses. I noticed the design does mimic roof lines in the area. There's a 2-story, a couple doors down to the west. So there is some vertical in the neighborhood. This may be one of the bigger houses in that immediate area, but I find that the character of the addition is compatible, and think this fits in rather well. And number 5, adequate control of disruptive behavior inside and outside the premises, which could create a nuisance to the surrounding area. I don't anticipate a 2nd-story addition would create any disruptive behavior inside or outside. So that criteria is met as well. Again, as stated earlier, this request for use permit is approved, subject to the 2 conditions outlined in the staff report, and good luck with your project. Thanks for being here today. Okay, that's agenda item 3. That's the only other case we had today. The next meeting of the hearing officer for City of Tempe is Tuesday, October 3rd, 2017. Steve, you have anything else before we adjourn?
Yes, actually, 2 items. One, a sad note.